The great hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with artificial starlight, its massive crystal dome reflecting the combined glory of 1,000 worlds. Yet for Ambassador Rose of the Dawnflowers, the beauty held no comfort today. Her naturally glowing skin, usually a soft blue-white like moonlight on water, had dimmed to a pale gray, a sign of deep distress among her kind. She stood before the council's raised platforms, her slender form seeming to shrink beneath the towering architecture. The latest projections of her dying sun filled the space behind her, bathing the hall in an ominous red glow. The data was clear. Within 5 years, their sun would begin its final death throes, making their homeworld uninhabitable for the photosynthetic dawnflowers. Honorable Council, Rose began, her voice steady despite her fear. We come before you one final time. Our scientists confirm that the solar shield technology you suggested cannot save us. Our bodies are too dependent on specific light wavelengths. We need help evacuating our people. The council speaker, a tall figure wrapped in ceremonial robes of deep purple, rose from his seat. His expression showed no emotion as he consulted the floating data screens before him. Ambassador, we have reviewed your petition extensively. The council's decision remains unchanged. Rose's glow flickered, a ripple of despair washing through her. Unchanged. But we are a peaceful member of the galactic community. We have shared our art, our light-based healing techniques. And we appreciate these contributions. The speaker cut in, his tone coldly diplomatic. However, the council must consider the larger picture. Your species requires extremely specific environmental conditions to survive. The resources needed to relocate and sustain your population would be excessive. Around the hall, other council members nodded in agreement. Some didn't even bother to look up from their data screens. They had already moved on to the next item on their agenda. You're condemning us to extinction, Rose said, her voice breaking. The word hung in the air like frost. Natural selection is a fundamental force in our galaxy, another council member added, almost kindly. Some species simply aren't meant to survive long-term. Your biological dependence on such narrow environmental conditions, perhaps this is nature's way off. Nature? Rose's skin flashed bright white with sudden anger, causing several council members to flinch. There is nothing natural about turning your back on those who need help. Nothing natural about having the power to save lives and choosing not to use it. The speaker's expression hardened. This meeting is concluded, Ambassador. The council wishes your people peace in their remaining time. Rose stood there, her glow pulsing with emotions she couldn't express. Thousands of years of civilization, art, music, and culture, all dismissed as too costly to preserve. Her people had believed in the promise of a united galaxy, had thought that their gentleness and creativity would be seen as gifts rather than weaknesses. As she turned to leave the hall, a young aide rushed to her side, his own skin glowing with excitement. Ambassador, we've received a transmission. Well, you need to see this. On the small data pad he handed her, a message played. The beings in the recording looked strange. Solid-colored skin without any bioluminescence, sturdy-looking bodies clearly evolved for a harsher world. They were broadcasting on old-fashioned radio waves, using a primitive but effective form of mathematics to communicate across the stars. They called themselves humans. Rose's glow brightened slightly as she studied their message. They were young as a spacefaring species, not even full members of the galactic community yet. But there was something in their transmission. An eagerness, a warmth that she hadn't felt in the council chambers despite all their advanced technology. For the first time in months, she felt something dangerous begin to grow in her heart. Hope. Captain James Walker stood at the viewing window of the ESS Horizon, watching the strange patterns of light dance across space. For 3 days, his ship had been tracking these unusual signals, beautiful sequences of light pulses that couldn't possibly be natural. Captain, called out Dr. Miller from her station, her voice tight with excitement. The computer finished translating the basic pattern. It's a distress signal. Walker turned from the window, his weathered face serious. Are we sure about that, Doctor? We're well outside Earth's approved exploration zone. Look at this. Miller gestured to her screen, where complex mathematical sequences scrolled past. They're using universal constants to communicate. The pattern keeps repeating. Danger, death, help. It's elegant and desperate. The bridge fell quiet as the crew considered their options. Earth's space exploration guidelines were clear. No contact with unknown species without proper authorization. But there was another rule, older than space travel itself: the duty to help those in danger. Walker rubbed his chin, feeling the weight of the decision. How far to the signal source? 2 days at maximum speed, sir, replied Tom, the young navigator. His fingers were already plotting the course, anticipating his captain's decision. Walker smiled at his crew's eagerness. Well then, I suppose we should at least take a look. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we're investigating a possible humanitarian crisis. The Horizon changed course, its engines humming with power. As they drew closer to the signal source, the crew's excitement turned to wonder. The star system they entered was beautiful but dying, its sun casting a dim red light over 9 planets. And on the 3rd planet, they found something extraordinary. Through their telescopes, they saw cities of crystal and light, massive structures that caught and channeled the fading sunlight. And moving through these cities were beings that glowed like living stars. My God, whispered Miller as she studied the readings. Their bodies appear to process light the way our cells process oxygen. Their photosynth. She was cut off by a new signal, stronger now that they were closer. On the main screen, a tall, luminous figure appeared. Its skin rippled with patterns of blue-white light, and though its features were alien, the crew could recognize its expression. Hope mixed with fear. We receive your presence, the being said in carefully constructed mathematical equations that the ship's computer translated. I am Ambassador Rose of the Dawnflowers. Please, we have little time. Walker stepped forward, keeping his voice steady and calm. I am Captain James Walker of the Earth ship Horizon. We're here to help. Over the next few hours, Rose explained their situation. The dying sun, the Council's abandonment, the desperate search for any civilization that might help them. Our scientists estimate we have less than 5 years before the light becomes too weak to sustain us, Rose explained, her glow dimming with sadness. The Council says we are too fragile to survive in the galaxy, that trying to save us would waste too many resources. Walker looked around at his crew. He saw the same determination in their eyes that he felt in his heart. Humanity was young in the galaxy, yes. They didn't have the most advanced technology, but they understood something about survival against the odds. Ambassador, Walker said, standing straight and proud. Earth has a long history of helping refugees. We may not have the fanciest ships or the most advanced technology, but we know how to adapt, how to survive, and how to help others do the same. For the first time, Rose's glow brightened with real hope. You would help us, even though we are strangers. Especially because you're strangers, Walker replied with a warm smile. Sometimes the best way to learn about ourselves is by helping others. Let me contact Earth. We'll need every ship we can get, but I promise you this, the Dawnflowers won't face extinction. Not while humanity has anything to say about it. The United Earth Council chamber buzzed with excited voices. On the main screen, Captain Walker's report played alongside images of the Dawnflower civilization. Representatives from every nation leaned forward in their seats, captivated by the glowing beings and their crystal cities. The numbers are clear. Dr. Miller explained from her position beside Walker. We have the capacity to save them, but it will take a massive effort. Every available ship, every resource we can spare. An older council member stood up, his face concerned. And where exactly would we put them? From what you've told us, these beings need very specific conditions to survive. That's where our proposal comes in, Miller said, changing the display to show a map of Earth. Several regions along the equator lit up in bright blue. These areas receive the most consistent sunlight. With some modification, they could support dawnflower settlements. Murmurs filled the chamber, some excited, some worried. A representative from Brazil raised her hand. "You're talking about building entirely new cities. The cost alone would be worth it." Walker cut in, his voice firm. "The dawnflowers aren't just refugees. They're artists, scientists, healers. Their understanding of light-based technology could revolutionize our solar power systems. Their medical techniques could transform our hospitals." The chamber grew quiet as a new message appeared on the screen. It was from the Galactic Council, their first direct communication with Earth since the crisis began. The Council speaker's image filled the screen, his expression stern. "Humanity, we feel compelled to warn you against this rash action. The dawnflowers are classified as a non-viable species. Their biological requirements make them unsuitable for galactic civilization. This is simply natural selection at work." Walker felt his fists clench at the cold words, but before he could respond, an unexpected voice spoke up. Natural selection. It was Dr. Thomas Ward, a quiet scientist who rarely spoke at these meetings. He stood slowly, leaning on his cane. "I find that interesting, coming from beings who've used technology to overcome their own biological limitations. Tell me, Speaker, do any of your species still live on their original homeworlds, breathing their original atmospheres?" The speaker's face tightened. "That is not the same." "It is exactly the same," Ward continued. "Civilization isn't about letting the strong survive. It's about using our intelligence and resources to help each other thrive. That's how humanity survived its own challenges, not by abandoning our weaker members, but by working together to overcome our limitations." Around the chamber, heads nodded in agreement. The Brazilian representative who had questioned the cost earlier stood up. "My region will offer land for the first settlement. The Amazon's constant sunlight and humidity will suit their needs." Other representatives began standing, offering resources, technology, and support. The council speaker's image flickered as he tried to speak over the growing enthusiasm, but no one was listening anymore. Miller stepped forward, her eyes bright with determination. "We've already designed preliminary habitation structures. If we begin construction immediately, we can have the first settlement ready within 8 months." "And the dawnflowers?" someone asked. "How long can they wait?" Walker pulled up Ambassador Rose's latest message. "Their sun's deterioration is accelerating. We have 4 years at most. It will be tight, but," he smiled, "humans work best under pressure." The Earth Council president stood, raising her hands for quiet. "Then let's make it official. All in favor of implementing Operation Sanctuary, please stand." The chamber erupted in movement as nearly every representative rose to their feet. The few who remained seated quickly joined them, caught up in the historic moment. "Very well," the president said, her voice strong and clear. "Let it be recorded that on this day, Earth formally extends sanctuary to the dawnflower species. Captain Walker, tell Ambassador Rose that humanity keeps its promises. We're coming to help." Through the screen, the council speaker watched in disbelief as humanity, this young, primitive species, began organizing the largest rescue operation in galactic history. His final warnings went unheard as the chamber filled with excited discussion of construction plans, transportation logistics, and welcome ceremonies. The impossible task of saving an entire civilization had begun. Marcus Thompson hadn't slept properly in 3 days, but he couldn't stop working. In his workshop at the Earth Space Center, pieces of his latest prototype lay scattered across multiple tables. The young engineer's hands moved quickly, adjusting the delicate light crystals that would help keep the dawnflowers alive during their journey to Earth. "The wavelength modulator is still off," he muttered, checking the readings on his tablet. The survival pods had to be perfect. Each one would carry 20 dawnflowers through space, keeping them alive with artificial sunlight carefully tuned to match their home star's original spectrum. A soft knock at the door made him look up. Captain Walker stood there, looking as tired as Marcus felt. "How's it coming?" Marcus gestured at the pod's curved shell. "Getting closer. The new crystal array works better than the old one. Should be ready for testing in." He was interrupted by a sudden bright flash from the pod. Both men shielded their eyes as the crystal array pulsed with brilliant light, then settled into a steady, warm glow. Walker lowered his hand, staring at the beautiful display. "Is it supposed to do that?" A slow smile spread across Marcus's face as he checked the readings. "No, but these numbers are perfect. Exactly what we need." He laughed, running his hands through his messy hair. Sometimes the best solutions come by accident. Across the solar system, similar breakthroughs were happening as humanity raced against time. In Brazil, massive crystal domes rose from the cleared jungle, their surfaces designed to capture and amplify sunlight. In orbit, ships were being retrofitted with the new survival pods, their crews training day and night for the rescue mission. On the Dawnflower homeworld, Ambassador Rose watched the first evacuation ships land. Her people gathered in the Crystal City's main square, their skin glowing with a mix of fear and excitement. None of them had ever left their planet before. "The pods are safe," Rose assured them, her own light pulsing gently to calm their fears. "The humans have tested them thoroughly. They will sustain us during the journey." A small child stepped forward, her light flickering nervously. "But what if Earth's sun isn't right for us? What if we can't survive there?" Rose knelt down to the child's level. "The humans have thought of that too. They're building special homes for us, with crystal walls that will make Earth's sunlight feel just like home." The first group of volunteers approached the ships, led by Dr. Miller. The human scientist had insisted on being present for the first evacuation, wanting to monitor the Dawnflower's reaction to the pods personally. "Remember," Miller explained as they entered the first pod, "if you feel any discomfort, any at all, just pulse your light twice. The pod will adjust automatically." The Dawnflowers settled into their chambers, their lights dimming as the travel sleep cycle began. Miller watched the readings carefully, letting out a relieved breath when everything stayed stable. Back on Earth, Marcus's invention was being mass-produced in factories around the world. Every available manufacturing plant had been converted to create survival pods. Workers took pride in their task, knowing each pod they built would save 20 lives. The first successful landing on Earth happened 3 weeks later. A pod opened in the Brazilian sanctuary dome, and 20 Dawnflowers stepped out into their new home. Their lights brightened in wonder as they felt Earth's sun through the crystal walls, modified to perfection by Marcus's light filters. It feels like home," one of them said, their voice filled with emotion. Captain Walker, watching from the dome's control room, pressed his hand against the window. "Welcome home," he whispered. The news spread quickly across both worlds. The pods worked. The sanctuaries worked. Operation Sanctuary wasn't just possible, it was succeeding. Humanity had promised to save the Dawnflowers, and they were keeping that promise, one pod, one dome, one family at a time. In his workshop, Marcus finally allowed himself to sleep, knowing that somewhere out there, his accident was helping to save an entire civilization. 6 months after the first landing, the Brazilian sanctuary dome had become more than just a refuge. It was a thriving community. Human scientists worked alongside Dawnflower scholars, each learning from the other in ways no one had expected. In one of the dome's research centers, Dr. Miller watched in amazement as a Dawnflower healer named Bright demonstrated their traditional light therapy. The healer's skin glowed with precise patterns of blue and gold light, directing the energy toward a damaged plant. "Incredible," Miller whispered as the wilted leaves began to straighten and green up. "The light frequencies you're using are actually triggering accelerated photosynthesis." Bright's skin rippled with pleasure at the comment. "We learned to heal this way over thousands of years, but your understanding of the scientific principles behind it helps us make it even more effective." Outside the research center, the sanctuary dome hummed with activity. Human children played with young dawnflowers, their laughter mixing with the musical pulses of light that showed the aliens' joy. Parents from both species watched with pride as their children invented new games that combined human movement with dawnflower light patterns. Marcus Thompson, now head of Earth Dawnflower Integration Technology, walked through the dome's central garden with Ambassador Rose. His original survival pod design had evolved into permanent living quarters that let the dawnflowers thrive in Earth's environment. "The solar collection systems you helped us design are revolutionary," Marcus said, pointing to the crystal arrays that crowned the dome. "We're already implementing them in cities across Earth. Energy efficiency is up by 300%. Rose's glow brightened with pride. "And your engineering principles helped us improve our light-storing crystals. Together, we're creating something entirely new." In the dome's art center, the first joint human dawnflower exhibition was opening. Dawnflower light sculptors worked with human artists to create pieces that combined physical materials with living light. Visitors from both species stood in awe before displays that seemed to bridge the gap between the physical and the ethereal. One piece, titled Unity, showed a human hand and a dawnflower's luminescent palm meeting in the middle of a crystal sphere. As viewers watched, the light from the dawnflower section would pulse in rhythm with a recorded human heartbeat, symbolizing the connection between the two species. "It's more than we ever dreamed," Rose said to Captain Walker as they toured the exhibition. "When we first received your response to our distress signal, we only hoped for survival. We never imagined this." Walker smiled, watching a group of human engineers working with dawnflower architects on plans for a new dome. "That's the thing about humanity. We're not good at just letting things be. We always want to make them better." The integration wasn't without its challenges. Some humans worried about the resources being used for the sanctuaries. Some dawnflowers struggled to adapt to Earth's day-night cycle. But for every problem that arose, the two species found solutions together. In hospitals, dawnflower healing techniques were revolutionizing treatment for seasonal affective disorder and other light-sensitive conditions. In schools, human children learned the basics of light pattern communication, while young dawnflowers studied Earth's languages. As the sun set over the sanctuary dome, the crystal walls automatically adjusted their filtering to maintain comfortable light levels for the dawnflowers. The evening shift of human workers arrived as their dawnflower colleagues prepared for their rest cycle, their skin dimming to a soft, peaceful glow. In her quarters, Rose recorded a message for the historical archives. "Today marks 6 months since our new beginning on Earth. The Galactic Council said we were too fragile to survive, that trying to save us would be a waste. But they didn't understand. Sometimes the greatest strength comes not from being invulnerable, but from being willing to help those in need. Humanity taught us that. And together, we're teaching the galaxy." Outside her window, Earth's moon rose over the sanctuary dome, its light joining the gentle glow of thousands of dawnflowers settling in for the night in their new home. The message from the Galactic Council arrived exactly 1 year after the first dawnflowers settled on Earth. It appeared simultaneously on screens in every sanctuary dome, its official seal glowing with artificial importance. Captain Walker and Ambassador Rose stood together in the Brazilian dome's command center, watching as the council speaker's familiar purple-robed figure appeared on the main screen. In light of the successful integration of the dawnflower species on Earth, the speaker began, his tone carefully diplomatic. "The Council has decided to reverse its previous position. We will now accept responsibility for the Dawnflower Relocation Program." Rose's light flickered with anger, but before she could speak, 3 more ships appeared on the radar. Council vessels, moving into Earth orbit without permission. As the governing body of galactic civilization, the speaker continued, "It is our duty to ensure proper oversight of all interspecies relations. We will begin transferring dawnflower populations to Council-approved facilities immediately." Walker stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Speaker. The dawnflowers are under Earth's protection. They're not yours to transfer." The speaker's expression hardened. Earth is not a full member of the galactic community. You lack the authority to. Authority. A new voice interrupted. Dr. Miller walked into view, holding a tablet displaying the latest research data. You mean like the authority you use to abandon an entire species to die? The authority that declared them too fragile to be worth saving. Screens around the command center lit up as more messages arrived. But these weren't from the Council. They came from other species, ones that had been watching Earth's rescue of the Dawnflowers with growing interest. "We receive your protection," read one message. "From a species of crystalline beings whose atmosphere was rapidly degrading." "We seek Earth's aid," came another, from aquatic creatures whose ocean world was warming beyond their tolerance. "Humanity shows the way," a third declared, from silicon-based life forms struggling to survive on their metal-poor planet. The speaker's image flickered as he read the incoming messages. "This is unprecedented. These species lack the necessary requirements for survival in your version of civilization." Walker asked quietly. "Maybe that's the problem. Maybe civilization shouldn't be about who's strongest or most adaptable. Maybe it should be about helping each other, about finding ways to make room for everyone." Rose stepped forward, her glow steady and bright. "The Council abandoned us because they said we were too weak, too specialized to survive. Humanity proved them wrong. They showed us that our specialization wasn't a weakness. It was just a different kind of strength. Around the world, in every sanctuary dome, Dawnflowers and humans gathered before the screens. Their combined light, both biological and technological, created a display visible from orbit. "The Dawnflowers aren't going anywhere," Walker stated firmly. "And neither are any other species who seek our help. Earth's sanctuaries will remain open to those in need." The speaker's face showed a mix of confusion and frustration. "You would challenge the Council's authority. Earth is young, primitive. Young enough to still remember what it means to struggle," Miller cut in. "Primitive enough to still care about helping others. And strong enough to stand by our principles." One by one, the Council ships in orbit retreated. They had no justification for force, not with so many species watching, not with their own member worlds beginning to question their decisions. As the speaker's image faded from the screens, replaced by messages of support from across the galaxy, Walker turned to Rose. "You know this means things will change. Earth will become a refuge for more species seeking help." Rose's glow brightened with determination. "Good. The Dawnflowers know something about being refugees. We'll help teach the others how to make Earth their home, too." The command center erupted in cheers and pulses of light. Humanity had not only saved one species, they had changed the very definition of strength in the galaxy. 20 years had passed since the first Dawnflowers arrived on Earth. The original sanctuary domes had grown into thriving cities, their crystal spires reaching toward the sky like flowers seeking the sun. But the most beautiful sight wasn't the architecture, it was the people within. In one of the newer research centers, Dr. Miller, now with gray hair, but the same bright eyes, watched a young team at work. Human scientists worked side by side with Dawnflowers, their lab coats contrasting with the gentle glow of their alien colleagues. But what made her smile widest was the team leader, a young woman whose skin shimmered with Dawnflower light despite her clearly human features. "The first of her kind," Captain Walker said, joining Miller at the observation window. He too had aged, but his stance remained proud, a true child of both worlds. The young scientist was Lisa Thompson, daughter of Marcus Thompson and his Dawnflower wife, Lightweaver. She represented something no one had expected. The two species could not only live together but could join as families, creating something entirely new. "Professor Thompson's team is close to a breakthrough," Miller said, watching Lisa adjust a complex array of crystals. Their new environmental adaptation system could help the ocean singers survive on land for the first time. The ocean singers were just one of many species that had found refuge on Earth after the Dawnflowers. Each new arrival brought their own challenges, but also their own gifts. Earth had become a living laboratory of adaptation and cooperation. In the main hall of the United Species Council, which had replaced the old United Earth Council, Ambassador Rose's granddaughter prepared to speak. Her name was Dawn Walker, named for both the Dawnflower people and the human captain who had saved them. Her skin glowed with patterns of light that matched her formal Earth diplomatic uniform. 20 years ago, Dawn began, her voice carrying the musical tones of her Dawnflower heritage. The galaxy taught us that we were too fragile to survive. Today, we teach the galaxy that true strength lies not in surviving alone, but in helping others survive with us. The hall was filled with representatives from dozens of species. Some breathed special gas mixtures, others floated in tanks of liquid, and still others existed as patterns of energy within crystalline matrices. Each had come to Earth seeking help, and each had found not just survival, but a chance to thrive. In orbit, Marcus Thompson's original survival pod design had evolved into vast space habitats, each tailored to the needs of different species. His grandson now led the engineering team that designed them, combining human innovation with the light manipulation technology of the Dawnflowers and the environmental control systems of other refugee species. But perhaps the most profound change was visible in the galaxy at large. The old Galactic Council had transformed, forced to evolve by the example Earth had set. Where once they had preached survival of the fittest, they now worked to preserve and protect the diversity of life in all its forms. In the original Brazilian Sanctuary Dome, now a historical monument, a group of schoolchildren, human, Dawnflower, and several other species, gathered around a simple display. It showed the first message Earth had sent in response to the Dawnflower's distress call. "We don't know if we can help," the message read, "but we promise to try." Those simple words had changed everything. They had proven that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology, or strength, or even survival instinct. Sometimes it was just the willingness to help, to try what others called impossible, to believe that every form of life had value. As Earth's sun set on another day, its light filtered through crystal domes and habitat fields, transformed into 1,000 different wavelengths to nurture 1,000 different species. In the growing darkness, the Dawnflower's natural light mingled with human-made illumination, a constant reminder that the universe was big enough for everyone, if you were willing to make room. The fragile ones had not only survived, they had helped create a whole new definition of strength.